Nike. The most iconic name in sports. The world's largest sportswear brand. Over $50 billion in annual revenue. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Behind the logo, the cracks have been showing. Sales are cooling, rivals are rising, and Nike stock down 20% over the past 5 years. Now the company's at a turning point, because what comes next could define Nike's future. How did the world's biggest sportswear brand stumble? Can Nike win back its edge? And is this a comeback or the beginning of the end for Nike? Let's rewind. For decades, Nike didn't just lead, it dominated. From Jordan's flu game, to Serena's grand slams, to Tiger's comeback roar. If you wore the swoosh, you were the culture. But that dominance didn't come from hype. It came from one thing: athletes. And Nike knew how to turn their stories into empires. In 2016, Nike was on top of the sporting world. But behind the scenes, a new game plan was brewing. Phil Knight, Nike's founder, was still calling plays behind the scenes. He saw where the world was heading. Digital first, direct to consumer. So Nike began cutting out the middlemen. Amazon, Zappos, even Foot Locker. Why split the revenue when you can sell directly through your own website, your own app, your own stores? At first, it worked. Revenue climbed steadily. Nike's margins stayed strong. Customer data started flowing in. And analysts praised the company's new control over the funnel. By 2019, Nike was pulling in record revenue. This wasn't just a shoe brand anymore. This was Nike, re-engineered for the digital age. Even as Nike celebrated those record numbers, longtime CEO Mark Parker saw the writing on the wall. Amazon was eating retail alive. Direct-to-consumer brands were multiplying fast. And customers? They wanted it all. Instant, seamless, personal. Nike's next leap wasn't about marketing or hype. It was about becoming a tech company that made sneakers. The question was, who could lead that transformation? 2020. Nike wasn't just changing CEOs, they were betting the farm on becoming a tech company. Mark Parker, the athlete whisperer, had built Nike into a cultural empire. But steering a digital transformation, that was a different game entirely. Enter John Donahoe, the man who turned eBay into a $20 billion machine, who scaled ServiceNow from startup to empire. Zero sneaker credibility, but proven tech leadership. This wasn't succession planning. This was Nike going all in. That data and direct sales would trump traditional retail. And at first, a slam dunk. The pandemic hit, gyms closed, retail died. But Nike was ready. App downloads exploded. Online sales nearly doubled. Direct-to-consumer revenue through the roof. Donahoe wasn't just running a shoe company anymore. He was architecting a data empire. Every click tracked, every purchase analyzed, every customer owned. Wall Street was in love. Stock price soared. Analysts called it the perfect pivot. But while Nike was celebrating digital dominance, the real world was starting to crack. Factories shutting down, supply chains breaking, inventory stuck in limbo. And those retail partners Nike had abandoned, they were signing exclusive deals with everyone else. Nike had optimized for data, but forgotten about distribution. 2022, reality arrived. When the shoes finally landed on shelves, the hype had moved on. Home workout craze? Over. Athleisure obsession? Fading. And Gen Z, Nike's most valuable demographic. They were hunting for something different. Hoka's for the wellness crowd. On running for the minimalists. New Balance, suddenly the cool choice. Nike had mastered the algorithm, but lost the culture. 2023, the paradox year. 51 billion in revenue, record numbers. But profit margins, shrinking. Inventory levels, bloated. Cultural relevance, fading. Nike had become operationally brilliant and culturally irrelevant. The company built on just do it had become a case study in just optimize it. Time for a reset. Time to bring back the athlete whisperers. Time for Elliott Hill. October 2024, emergency switch. Nike's stock had lost 40% of its value. Market share bleeding to upstarts. Cultural relevance fading fast. Phil Knight, Nike's 76-year-old founder, pulled a Tom Brady, brought back an old veteran. Elliott Hill, the man who built Jordan into a billion-dollar empire, who turned running and basketball into cultural movements. An athlete whisperer in a company that had forgotten how to speak their language. This wasn't succession planning. This was admitting the digital transformation had failed and betting everything on a return to Nike's roots, the athlete, the product, the story. Hill's first 100 days, brutal, fast, surgical. $2 billion in cost cuts. Entire digital teams, gone. But this wasn't just downsizing. This was ideological warfare. Out. Algorithm-driven product decisions. In. Athlete feedback and street credibility. Out. Direct-to-consumer obsession. In. Rebuilding retail partnerships. Out. Data scientists calling the shots. In. Sneakerheads back in charge. There was one problem. Sales kept falling. Turns out, you can't reverse engineer culture. Gen Z had already moved on. Retail partners were locked into competitor deals. And Nike's product pipeline? Still built in boardrooms, not locker rooms. June 2025. Judgment Day. Nike's quarterly earnings call. Wall Street, retail partners, athletes, everyone watching. Can Elliott Hill prove the comeback is real? Early signs are mixed. The efficiency play worked. Costs down. Inventory streamlined. But margins? Still under pressure. Revenue? Still declining. Market share? Still shrinking. Cultural currency? Still rebuilding. Here's the brutal truth about comebacks. You can fix operations in months, but rebuilding culture, that takes years. The question isn't whether Nike can survive. The question is whether the swoosh can still stand for greatness or just supply chain precision. Will Hill's athlete-first revolution succeed, or is Nike forever changed? An optimized machine with no soul. If Nike wants this comeback to stick, it has to go back to its roots. Not just running faster, not optimizing harder, but doing what Nike does best, storytelling that moves culture. And that's exactly where Hill is starting, refocusing on athletes, clearing out excess inventory, and reigniting the product pipeline. Nike still has the deepest bench in sports marketing. Smaller brands are winning Gen Z's attention. But Nike knows how to win it back. Because this isn't just any shoe company. It's a brand built on moments, built on greatness. And greatness? It doesn't vanish after one bad quarter. This isn't the end of the swoosh. It's the start of the comeback.